Welcome to the Smash Jump Podcast, your place for honest and passionate gaming conversations. With the year being 2025 now, we've entered into the half-decade mark of the 2020s, and we thought, thanks to a great podcast idea by Adrian coming with us into this episode, why don't we celebrate by discussing some of our favorite and most impactful games of the last half decade, and then maybe even talk a little bit about what the next half decade could look like. I'm Ashton Lavelle, your host and Smash Jump contributor, and with me are a few awesome people.
Hi, I'm Nicole. I'm a contributor at Smash Jump.
Hi everyone, I'm Adrian. I'm the managing editor.
Hi, I'm Jeremy. I'm also a contributor at Smash Jump.
All right. And so, like we just said in the intro, we're at 2025, which is kind of crazy to think about. It's the years just keep on coming. They fly by at this point.
Waiting for that sweet embrace of death.
It's coming. It's coming for all of us eventually. Hopefully not for a very, very, very long time.
Take some time.
But you know what never will die, I hope, probably, is video games.
I hope so.
I like to play.
No, I hope so.
We've seen it crash before, but hopefully not again. But well, we've been playing games, I hope. I mean, we might not, people have things to do with their time, but we're going to start off with our classic icebreaker segment, what you've been playing. And I'm actually going to start off because just last night, I have finally, after all this time, finally finished Okami. It's done. It's done. It's in the books. I've gotten the full experience. I've rolled the credits, and it is complete. A little long. 30 plus hours for the main story is a little long for a Zelda. Like, I got a little fatigued, but I will say, if you can pace yourself and play it like I did over like 2 months, it is a quite enjoyable experience. It's so pretty. The music is gorgeous. And the only things that I really have a big problem with are the length. And I think that the unique mechanic, the celestial brush, could have been fleshed out a little bit more. Like, a lot of the celestial brush techniques equate to draw a circle on a thing or draw a line from one thing to another thing. And either it'll be a fire that will go to it, or an ice, or lightning. And it was like, okay, you could have made me maybe like for lightning, maybe I could have drawn like a thunderbolt symbol, like a zigzag to be like a lightning strike. And that could have called down lightning from the sky or something. There are variations of that, like the fire power. You can get an upgraded version that if you do an infinity symbol, it makes like a big fireball in the middle that does an AoE, which is pretty cool. But, I wish that there was a little bit more variety for the base level of those powers, because the, more powerful versions are side options. Like, you don't have to go get them. But otherwise, I mean, it's still really cool to have those celestial brush techniques. And again, I just think it's really charming. I think the characters are all really fun to interact with, really cool to see their stories play out throughout the whole game. And there were a few moments that I honestly didn't expect, but I got a little choked up. Never to the point where I actually cried or anything like that, but I think something about having my own dog, and especially like a larger white dog, does something for me with this game, because whoever, the director of this game and the writers, they know how dogs are. Like, they definitely have a love for dogs, because you can see it come out in Amaterasu and how she acts around things. And so some certain moments really just hit me in the feels because of that. But that's what I've been playing. Oh, and I have started playing Smash Ultimate a little bit again. It's been a long time. I've never actually finished the like campaign mode, because it's just kind of like whatever. But I started playing it a bit through some more again, and having a good time. So that's what I've been playing. What about you guys?
I just finished today, rolled credits on Cabernet, which it's a game that came out about almost 2 weeks ago. That's set in, it doesn't really specify, it does the whole Eastern Europe, which I love when they do that. It's good. It's really, really good. It's
my favorite country, Eastern Europe.
Yeah, Eastern Europe. Every American knows where Eastern Europe is.
Yep.
And
Europe.
yeah, clearly.
Is it in the West?
My other favorite country, Europe.
It's where Adrian is from. So it's about vampires. And it's kind of like it's an RPG type game where you play as a woman who's just been turned into a vampire. You wake up in some shady ass basement and you got to climb up on out there and start reintegrating into society as a vampire. And the cool thing is that when you first start the game, you're dead. So your gravestone is how you pick your stats. So your family are like, doing the whole like memorial thing, and they're like, "Ah, yes, our daughter was," and then you select very into literature, but she chose science. And I was like, perfect, this is a great way to immortalize me and choose what my stats are. And so yeah, I did that. And it's such a cool game because you essentially, because you're out at nighttime, you have 4 powers, which are that you can become a bat. The achievement is called bat, like with an exclamation mark, as in what we do in the shadows. So that made me happy. And then you can go invisible. You can turn into like vamp mode to feed on people, and you can hypnotize people, and you can make them do some really nefarious things. It's pretty funny.
Sounds like normal East European stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, typical thing.
And,
Every average Tuesday.
Average
Tuesday. So my favorite thing was I paid some guy who I did end up romancing. You can romance people. I romanced some bookshop guy because he was just super cute and into books, and I was like, well, he gave me sensibility. I've got to take it. I hypnotized him into giving me a cut of his pay every day. So I'd get a letter in the mail just being like, oh, here's your money. It's like, excellent, just keep coming. It's like in Skyrim when you get married and you just get earnings from your partner. I love it.
So, wait a minute, Nicole. So you paid him and you hypnotized him.
I hypnotized him and then he pays me.
Oh.
Yeah, I may have said that the other way around, but that's what I mean. And then although I probably paid him in like, I don't know, romantic favors, wink. But the game is completely unhinged at times. It's great. There are some amazing moments. The story is wild. It's really fun as a role-playing game. And what did I do at the end? I'm not going to spoil it, but let's just say that there were 2 real end game options, and I went for the more unhinged, murderous one first. And I was like, it was incredible. I felt like a god. And then I went, okay, now that I've done that felt wrong. So let me just reload that save and just do the good one. And then I did the good one, and then it was like an extra half an hour of stuff, and I was like, right, this is clearly the one they wanted me to go for. I think it's like £16 on Xbox at the moment, so it's on all platforms. It's like nothing. It's a really cute indie. It is awesome. I love it.
What was it called again?
Cabernet, like the wine, like so
Cabernet.
Cabernet, I believe.
Is it on Game Pass?
If you were American, you would just say Cabernet.
Cable
So,
net. Yeah.
am I like a fancy wench for saying Cabernet like that?
No, you're just correct. Americans are just
correct.
wrong.
Okay.
It's like how we say sake instead of sake.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, I recommend everyone give it a go. It's like 16, 17 pounds for a damn good time. And if you translate that into dollary dues on Xbox Store or whatever, it's probably going to be the exact same, because for some reason we have to pay more for games over here. Whatever.
Well, I have to fact check it now that you told me about it. It's going to be interesting, yeah.
Who else
Right.
has been playing games?
And it's 10% off on Steam right now.
Oh, there we go. Give it a go.
Perfect. Well, for Eastern European, since we're on that subject, Adrian, have you been how much blood have you been sucking as an Eastern European vampire on the weekends?
You know what? I don't have any witty vampire remarks right now, but I'll tell you related to blood. I've had spilled a lot of it in Ninja Gaiden. So I started my sort of playthrough through the Ninja Gaiden trilogy, especially because the new Ninja Gaiden 2 Black came out on Game Pass on Xbox. And I started with that one, and then I was like, wait a second, maybe this is a great opportunity for me to actually go back to the first one, complete it, and so on. I went back to the first one. It is rough. It came out in 2004. It's still a great game. The gameplay is amazing. Like, so I don't know if you played it. It has, it's quite gory. It can be quite gory and stuff like that. But the camera is the real enemy in that game, as all the sort of Ninja Gaiden games also have that sort of problem. So I finished that one. I went straight into Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, and I'm really enjoying it. Really enjoying it. On the side, I've started playing Avowed because I was really curious about it.
Oh my god, yes! I was talking about Avowed last week. Yes,
Yeah.
Adrian, gimme. How is it?
It's good. I don't feel like it's great so far.
Is the meme that you posted in our chat related to Avowed? It felt targeted.
Which one?
The
Which one?
RPG one.
The RPG
Dialogue
one, yeah.
options, the
Oh yeah, it was part of it. Part
It's
of
not as bad as Dragon Age Veilguard in terms of the
No.
dialogue, because that was truly a yes, yes, yes. There was a moment where how far are you, Adrian?
Oh, very at the beginning, basically.
Okay,
Like,
so I won't spoil it then, but there's some
no,
like
please.
shady guy in a cave at some point, and the options don't sound too different really when you're picking them, but oh boy, do they have very different outcomes. And the
Yeah,
game
well,
does have moments like that.
the classes. So I like the classes definitely, and the fact that even so, I started as a war hero basically. But what I liked about it is that okay, I can put my sort of my points in, forgot what the exact one, charisma or something like that, to kind of unlock more peaceful sort of ways to deal with things. So I appreciated that, but I still think it's not like, it doesn't match Baldur's Gate or more targeted RPGs. I feel like they went for more accessibility, which is fine, but yeah, I really like sort of an RPG that you can really get immersed in. Maybe this one is not so far, but yeah, I still have to finish it. So
Yeah, I haven't finished it yet. I will say that I think that Obsidian as a company, they had like Fallout New Vegas, which was their banger. And it's been a long time and things have changed since then. But I do think that they're like rediscovering that RPG thing because they're getting better. I think Outer Worlds always have to
yeah.
distinguish between the two. I think it was really, really good and had some great RPG mechanic moments. And then they decided to take Pillars of Eternity and do Avowed, which is kind of weird, a weird, complete like sidestep of like what they were doing. But I do think that these are hopefully all steps in the right direction. And I think that if I had to choose between Dragon Age Veilguard and Avowed as something to like, if I had to get rid of one and play with the other, I'd choose Avowed over Dragon Age.
Yeah,
Simply because of that.
Yeah, I think the story is interesting. The problem I'm having a lot with is the gameplay, actually. It does feel,
Really?
yeah, it does feel like clunky, especially so I'm going right now for War Hero sort of melee build.
That's what I'm on, yeah.
Yeah, and I just I don't know. It's so far, it's not that interesting in terms of actually attacking, defending, and so on. So yeah, I don't know.
Has its moments,
that's
yeah.
how it's going. Yeah, it's more
No.
clunky, which is interesting because Indiana Jones and The Great Circle was my best game of the year, like sort of last year, and that was a great way how they did sort of the first person of it. It felt decently clunky to be sort of like, I would say, believable, but it wasn't frustrating. I feel like this one would Avowed right now. It's a bit frustrating. I feel like a lot of the times I have to dodge rather than rely on like
Oh yeah,
blocking.
I dodge so much. Yeah, but I'm a
Yeah.
dodging queen. I said it the other day, like how in Lies of P, I just like I never once parried, and then at the end during the last boss, I was like, crap, I now have to learn how to do something I didn't do the entire game. My friend was like, yeah, just parry. I'm like, do what? I don't understand what this word parry means.
Because you guys are so conditioned by Elden Ring and the Souls-like.
Yeah,
Just roll over and stuff. Yeah.
roll
it's
all
why I
over the place.
struggled
Just
with
I'm not
I'm like a
Sekiro.
little
He's not built
hedgehog
like
rolling
that.
around.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
All
that's
right.
what
For
Yeah.
context, for the audience, the meme in question was RPG dialogues in the 2000s, and they had three options, and one was like yes, and the other one was like maybe, and the other one was like what the fuck is wrong with you? And then RPGs in the 2020s was yes, 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 but with different variations. So
Yeah, different
sound off in the
tones
comment
of
section
yes.
below if you agree with that or if you disagree with that. We'd love to hear your opinion. Jeremy, what you been playing?
So I've been a pretty hardcore gamer, I can't lie.
Dr. Nintendo's here.
Put the glasses straight on.
I have been playing the most hardcore game you can play on Nintendo Switch, Fortnite.
Let's go.
Oh no.
Oh no.
I've put too many hours into Fortnite. They brought in Hatsune Miku and now I'm addicted. I played Chapter 6 Season 1 for God knows how long, and now here I am playing Season 2, and I'm sad and alone.
I
Jeremy.
played 5 minutes of Fortnite once, and now I'm just like, I can't believe that we're having this
So
conversation.
is that what got
Okay.
you in there? Was Miku? It did not. None of the other characters did it for you. It was Hatsune Miku that got you in.
Yeah, because the only other times I played Fortnite like a lot was when they brought in the employee from Lethal Company, and when they brought in Goku Black back in like 2023. But my hours in Fortnite went from like 60 or so on Switch to like 120, and I'm like,
oh wow.
I know my life is over. It's over. I have to retire. The only saving grace is this thing. This is the only reason I'm still a gamer.
the old DS.
I love
DS,
this.
whichever one.
It's funny because like they brought Alan Wake in, and that even wasn't good enough for me to go.
They brought
Jeremy,
Superman in, and that wasn't enough for me to come in.
They got Black Cat in there now. And
what's your question, Adrian?
Yeah, I tried Fortnite on Switch. Tell me, how do you do it? Because it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating.
Wait, you're doing it on Switch?
Yes.
Yeah, on Switch.
Yes.
I gave up after like the first 30 minutes of it because I just couldn't aim anything. Like it was in handheld, to be honest.
I'm mostly playing handheld too.
Jesus.
Wow.
How do you make it happen?
You can play Fortnite on your phone too, right? So like it's everywhere. Is it crossplay?
Yeah, oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh God.
Yeah.
So you're playing against the keyboard and mouse people with the pinpoint accuracy.
Yeah, my friend plays on PS5. And I'm playing with him on Switch, so it takes me like an hour to load in to download an update. It's like here's an hour download. I'm like, for what? For what?
Hatsune Miku, man.
Oh,
polygons.
Oh my God.
The hair. It's the hair.
Yeah, I feel it, Nicole. I feel it. Like it's
wow.
This hurts me.
I'm insane
on several levels.
Okay, but have you got a victory royale?
Yeah, I've got a couple.
He's goated. He's goated. I mean,
I suck at the game. People carry me, but I've had my moments.
I love you admitting
already
that you've been carried. I love that.
I'm carried in everything I ever play. I'm not a real gamer. I'm only a gamer on the weekend.
Isn't that the life of an adult at this point?
Oh,
yeah, I was gonna say you're not special in this. I think everyone is a bit of a gamer on the weekend. That's why I only played Cabernet yesterday when I started. I was like, I've already finished it. I was like, got to get this all out now because I'm busy next week. So
yeah.
That's why it took me 2 months to beat Okami. Like 30 hours is fairly long, but like I played longer. Like RPGs are like that's like on the lower end for a lot of like JRPGs especially, but I mean that you get through it how you can get through it, you just gotta find the time. And I found surprisingly, decent enough time during this past half decade to play a lot of games, but there's also been a lot of time.
Great. It's an amazing segue. Yeah.
All right, we're going into gamer mode.
Keep going, Ashton. These segues are amazing. Love it.
But the past half decade has also had a lot of time for a lot of just weird stuff to happen, right? Like before we get into the games, I want to just briefly sort of touch on a few things that like shaped gaming as a whole in this past half decade, 2020 to 2025. I mean, we had COVID, right? 2020 was like right there, it was
multiplayer gaming shot up.
Yeah,
it went mental.
Console games exploded and stuff so that, and we're still, I feel like, feeling the effects of COVID still today with how games are. And we saw like some games like Animal Crossing just have such a moment because of COVID that I'm not sure if they would have had the same level without that. So it was really interesting. And we're also feeling the effects of, I think, the COVID bump kind of crashing down at this point. Everybody was out buying consoles. Everybody was trying to get in gaming because they were locked in their house. People were playing Animal Crossing, playing online. And now that the world's open,
it never felt so snug in my life being a gamer. All my friends were like, I can't cope. What do I do? And I was like, I've been preparing for this all my life. And my friends were like trying to emergency buy Nintendo Switches because they wanted to play Animal Crossing. And I was like, I got all the stuff. Like, get out. Good luck.
Yeah. So we had the COVID years, and that's tough, and we're still feeling that. But of course, there was also a lot of, we'll call them controversies, but some of them aren't necessarily. They're just like events, big events, right? I'm thinking of, obviously, we've had Blizzard have its whole thing happen during this time period. We've seen Xbox battle the FTC in lawsuits during this time, and we got a lot of leaks out of that. Do y'all remember NFTs? Remember when that was like the
Unfortunately.
biggest thing?
Unfortunately.
And they were going to
Unfortunately,
be in
yeah.
everything, and now they've died, thankfully.
Yeah, I remember them the other day, and I was like, "What the hell was that?"
I remember when these guys, like rich guys, all of a sudden started buying like fake monkeys or something.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Like,
And like your
dude,
icon on Twitter would turn into a hexagon to like show it's an NFT. And I'm like, bro,
yeah,
come on.
stupid.
And like Square
was
Enix
lame.
came out and we're like, we're gonna put NFTs in everything.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Remember,
wow.
they sold Tomb Raider for that.
They look, it was one of the many mistakes of the
Yeah.
past few years.
But don't forget, they kept Gex. It's very important that you know they kept Gex.
It's important. That's Gex is gonna make a comeback. It's making a comeback.
One day.
In fact, I think there's a remaster coming.
Oh god.
Very soon. I think there's a remaster. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Gex making a comeback. The gecko is not going anywhere. We've also had some just crazy things like classified military leaks in War Thunder 2 years ago, which is like, what is up? There's something with War Thunder and like classified information that just goes hand in hand for some reason. Not sure what that's about, but and of course, as we're seeing now, unfortunately, we do have a lot of layoffs now and studio closures. Most recently, the biggest one that we've heard about being Monolith just now getting closed down, the Wonder Woman game getting canned. And that one really hit hard because Monolith is one of those, I wouldn't say biggest of big game like developers out there, but when you've played some of their games, you really start to realize like the amount of games that you surprisingly recognize. And I was really excited for the Wonder Woman game by them. I was really hoping that, using the system that they used from the Shadow of Mordor games, the Nemesis system, I thought that could have been really cool for them to use in Wonder Woman. But now, I mean, I don't know if we'll ever see that Nemesis system again in the current state that it's in.
Yeah, I think it's blocked behind all sorts of legal
Warner
stuff.
Bros. Has it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel sad. I feel sad for Monolith because I was one of the earliest fans of them. I liked Alien versus Predator 2 that they did. I really liked Fear to me. So First Encounter, Assault and Recon is still one of the best first-person shooters I've ever experienced. And that came out, I think, in 2005. It really pushed sort of AI within first-person shooters and sort of like graphics and physics engines and so on. They had some really great ones. Didn't they? Of course, they did the Shadow of Mordor as well.
Yep.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, there was a lot of talent there, and yeah, I would have been curious about Wonder Woman. To some extent, when they announced it, I was excited because I was curious. Well, these guys have a very sort of specific skill set that they could work with. Let's see what they can do. The problem is, I feel like the Wonder Woman sort of hype kind of sailed away, unfortunately. I remember the latest movie wasn't doing that.
That movie did irreparable damage.
Right. So I would have been curious even from the perspective if we had a Wonder Woman game, how would it be, how would it play really? Would it be more like Arkham games? Would it be like, yeah.
I mean, it definitely, I feel like it'd definitely be Shadow of War like, right? Like, I think Wonder Woman 1984 definitely sort of stifled a little bit of the Wonder Woman hype because she had such a big renaissance with the other movie, just plain old Wonder Woman, when that came out, and then she was in like Batman v Superman. And regardless of people's feelings about the Zack Snyder trilogy or his movies, Wonder Woman has always been a highlight of them. And so even though that one movie was bad, I feel like if this Wonder Woman, just the color palette we saw from the one like teaser trailer, gave a little bit of that grounded, like darker color vibes. Like it felt like it could be something where you're running through Themyscira, you're doing like combos, you've got your sword, you got doing parries and bashing with your shield, that kind of thing. And I think using the lasso to move around would have been a cool concept or something. But unfortunately, I guess we'll never see. And they also, little smaller game because it didn't last forever, but Gotham City Imposters. Does anybody remember that?
I do.
It's like, I loved Gotham City Imposters.
I played it back in like 2012. Oh, good
times.
Wow. You just like awakened a memory.
Gotham City
Damn.
Imposters. I thought it was really fun. It's basically just
Yeah, good
like
times.
TF2, but
Yeah.
with Batman and Joker and stuff. I thought
Yeah.
it was fun.
So they made that
Definitely
one too?
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Hmm.
Sure enough. Sure enough. Back in 2012, it looks like they developed it. So unfortunately, Monolith is just one of many of these studios that we're seeing be impacted by these things. We've had countless stories at this point, and we keep hoping that our hearts go out to all of the people who are affected by it. We hope that they get they land softly, and hopefully we can see this sort of trend die down quickly, because it's becoming almost like a regular thing at this point, and that's really really dangerous and really disheartening. But in other news, kind of try to bring it back over, this past 5 years has seen a lot of consoles as well.
Mm-hmm.
We started with PS5. That was in November of 2020. Xbox Series also came out around that time. So our new generation that we're still
I
in.
love the way that you like proudly showed off PlayStation, and then you like just like an Xbox was there
An
too.
Xbox came out. It was there. It was there. It came out at some point.
Me, the Xbox girl. Yeah, okay.
I mean, if you can find a game, let me know. I'm waiting.
I'm waiting for both of y'all to find a game. Let's.
Oh, dear, oh dear.
And we got the Switch OLED.
Yeah.
Jeremy came out in 2021.
Never
Steam
bought
Deck,
it.
revolutionary.
Bought that
In
one
2022. You did buy the Steam Deck?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, there you go. There you go. We got
Best
the PS
console ever,
Portal
was it?
as well. PS Portal was 2023. And then the most recent thing, we got the Switch announced,
Yeah.
presumably coming out this year. I think, was that confirmed, or is that
It's coming
still
out
like
this year. Yeah.
It's confirmed this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's coming out this year to end off the half year mark. I don't think, or half decade mark. I'm not sure that.
Yeah.
I mean, we might have some like smaller, like Asus might have stuff coming out and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But for the big companies, that's kind of it. So we've had a lot of console stuff going around. Big start to our half decade with a brand new console generation for Xbox
good
and PS5
start.
and Nintendo.
Oh,
Mhm.
as an
So-
Xbox person, I needed that because the one was tragic. It was bad.
It was. I have a one. Can you believe it?
I have a one. I kind of like hate played her half the time.
I played
know?
one game on it.
Oh, what was
Wow.
that?
It was Gears of War Remastered. That was
That
it.
makes sense. That makes
Okay.
sense.
That was it. That was the only game I played on it. Sad
I'll be
times,
honest,
sad
as
times.
someone who has come like just arrived.
Oh no,
in
I
the
played Gears of War 5 on it too. Correct
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah. I was about to add that I have the PS5, the Switch, and the Xbox Series X. And coming like I'm new to the Xbox ecosystem, so when I got the console, yeah, lucky me now, right? Because they go multi-platform. But I still think the Xbox Series X as a console, in terms of actual build quality, it's really, really good. Probably better
Yeah.
than PS5 from what I've seen. I literally
The
had
one win. The one win
Yeah.
we have. Yes.
That's it. That's it, right? But we still need the games, Nicole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's my favorite mini fridge.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
I
so
really
funny
want that
because
fridge.
the Xbox Series X is like a mini fridge, and then the PS5 is like Seto Kaiba.
What?
So pick your poison.
It's like a Wi-Fi router.
Yeah.
Yeah,
A
it is.
very large Wi-Fi router.
Very large.
I got myself an OLED too, because Jeremy said, okay, you didn't get an OLED. I mean, it's too late now, Jeremy, but
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
don't
not
do
gonna
that.
buy it.
this is why I was upset a bit with the Switch 2 announcements, because I was like, oh, please go with an OLED launch
Oh,
option.
yeah.
But no, we're not gonna
It
have.
looks so good.
Eventually will, but yeah.
Yeah.
Switch OLED.
I
Amazing.
have an OLED in there too. I have the Scarlet and Violet Special Edition OLED or whatever in there.
yeah.
And yeah, when you play like Tears of the Kingdom on handheld and you're seeing that OLED screen and those black levels are chef's
Great.
kiss,
Yeah.
fucking
Great.
gorgeous. But yeah, lots of stuff going on, lots of games that have come out since then. So to get into our main topic here, we want to go ahead and talk about our favorite and or most impactful games from the past half decade. Now, I kind of presented that to you guys to interpret however you'd like. So if you put your most favorite, then that's cool. If you put games that you thought would be the most impactful, but maybe necessarily aren't your favorite, that's fine too. I'm interested to see how these lists end up. So the way we're going to go ahead and do it is in our classic fashion. I kind of want to go one by one. Go ahead and give me a reason why it's on your list, and make sure to let me know if you interpreted it as a favorite or as an impactful, and why it is either your favorite or an impactful game. And then we'll kind of get into it. We'll see if we share some games on our list. We see if we disagree on if a game is actually going to be that impactful or not. And we're going to go ahead and start off with Adrian, since it was your idea that brought it to us. Let me get your first game and let me know how you interpreted this question.
Wow, putting me on the spot straight from
Absolutely.
the beginning. Yeah, I mean, I actually did sort of half-half list because the impactful games, I actually didn't get the chance to really play them all throughout. But I'm fairly confident that we're gonna have two of them here that will make all of our lists. So I'm just gonna start maybe with the usual suspect of, let's say, Elden Ring.
Fine. I'll let you take Elden Ring. I'll let you explain why.
Well, I'll be honest, I'm not
Have
an
you played Elden Ring, Adrian?
No, I played a bit of it, but I'm not a Souls-like fan. But maybe Nicole will say more, maybe you guys will say more as well too. But just on the basis of its impact across the industries, we have Souls-like is the key term right now in across the industry, right? And this all comes from Elden Ring because of its success. It became more accessible as a Soul-like for people. I liked playing it. I am not like a fan of Souls-like simply because I get frustrated when I repeatedly die, and my time is limited and I'm like, oh man, I just can't, push through this. But yeah, that's one of them.
Real quick. Nicole, Jeremy, was Elden Ring on both of y'all's lists?
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it was on my list too, so we all share that one, of course. Okay, got it.
Actually, if you guys want, you can add why you feel this is impactful too.
I mean,
absolutely.
I was
Let's
gonna
get into it. Let's get into it.
throw in that I was still at home because COVID was still like, I was working from home still. So a lot of the time I'd like go on my lunch break and immediately just go ham on whatever boss I was struggling with between things at work. So yeah, Elden Ring was just super important and part of my COVID journey. And I didn't like Souls-like games, Soulsborne games at all until Elden Ring. Like I tried Dark Souls repeatedly, wasn't for me. Didn't like how difficult it was, and then I played Elden Ring, and I was like, this is for the people that don't know that they like these games yet. I'm discovering that I like them.
The awakening. It's a gateway drug.
Yeah, and then it was, and then I finished it, and then I was like, right, let me just go and buy all of Dark Souls, buy Sekiro. Let's go watch some people play Bloodborne and cry. Then I had a damn good time. So I think Elden Ring was super important as part of the COVID journey, and just as someone who didn't like those kinds of games. So yeah.
So Jeremy, have you played Elden Ring?
No, because I'm with Adrian. I don't like Souls-likes whatsoever.
So what made you put it on the list?
So when you think of like games that kind of came out in the past half decade, there's two that come to mind immediately for me, and it's spoilers and Elden Ring.
Right.
Elden Ring is just one of the games that kind of like everyone was talking about when it came out. It was, of course, Game of the Year winner over God of War, and it's just like culturally, like overall relevant. Maybe not so much as other games that have come out recently, but it kind of, to a degree, the Souls-like was already popular. Elden Ring shot it up, and now it just became so much more mainstream than it was before. So I think it is a game to just kind of really think about, because it is a rare exception to a lot of modern AAA culture where games are rushed and buggy at launch and have to be fixed over time. Elden Ring wasn't really that in comparison to a lot of other games that came out in the past 5 years. So
yeah, I completely agree with that. I mean, to that note, Jeremy just bringing up the Souls games being popular, but Elden Ring really taking it to a next level. Just 3 months ago, they announced that it sold about 30 million copies, which surpasses every Dark Souls game combined. So that shows you just how massive Elden Ring was. And for me, as somebody who already loved Soulsborne before Elden Ring came out, Elden Ring was basically like this perfect swan song that showed that no matter what From Software wanted to do, they're gonna do it right. And I think a little bit of what Elden Ring does is undercut because of Breath of the Wild that came out just a little bit before. Elden Ring does the thing that I love so much in open world games now, where it doesn't give you a lot of direction. It just gives you the world and says go. And I think the most beautiful thing about Elden Ring is when you first get out to Limgrave, you're at that first site of grace and you look out into the distance. There's so many things that will catch your eye, from a castle here to a giant mountain over there to a weird, gross mushroom looking pus place over there.
We don't go there.
So much stuff.
We don't go there.
There's so much stuff. And then right below you, you look onto the ground and you see a church over there. You see a path that goes that way. You see a giant guy in a golden armor and a horse standing right there looking at you.
And past him.
There's so much stuff. You're like, okay, it doesn't give you need to go here, but it shows you like, here's all these things you can do. Pick a direction and go. And I just think that's so beautiful.
I love the way that the Site of Grace just slightly points you in the right direction.
Right.
But like, it doesn't actually tell you where to go. It's just like, hey, there's a massive building in the direction that this is pointing at. I'm going to assume that that's where I got to go.
Exactly. And then you just kind of go off the beaten path after that, right? And there's so much stuff to enjoy. And I think my opinion has always been that Dark Souls is still their best level design in any of their games so far, and their best world because of how interconnected it is. But Elden Ring is second because they found a way to take that interconnectedness that Dark Souls has and put it into an open world. I always talk about the moment you're in the forest, you see this big dome-like structure, and you go inside, and there's an elevator, and you get on it, and it goes down, and then it goes down, and then it keeps going down, and all of a sudden you go through some rocks, and all of a sudden the night sky is above you, and you're like, wait, what? I'm going underground. Why is there blue star skies around me? And you're in this entirely new world, and you go explore it, you go to the end of it, and you can go up.
That the surface has, which is you can see Moog's palace from down there, which you can go to later.
Which so eventually, like, by near the end, you can actually go there and then look out where you were. And by the end of that first area, you go up and you end up in a completely different area that connects those two. And there's things like that throughout the entire game. I think that's what really makes it special, is their ability to take an open world and not just say, oh, it's a really cool world, but it's kind of just, a cool world and that's it. There's so much to it. There's layers to it. There's verticality to it. It's not just the flat world. It is an underground. It is an above. It is all connected together. And it's so beautiful. I definitely think Elden Ring is going to permanently change the way that people view FromSoft games and the way that open world games are being created right now, because it was so popular and it's so good. So I completely agree with that.
I do want to piggyback on that and just say as well, Lies of P came out in 2023, and it was like riding on the beautiful coattails of Elden Ring, and it came out on Game Pass. It's apparently leaving in 2 weeks, so I'm livid because I'm gonna have to buy it before the DLC comes out. So I'm livid, but whatever, it's fine. I'll give them all my money. I love them, and and I also, there's always such a habit Dark Souls has of going into the past with its DLC, of just like it likes to futz with time. And Lies of P is going into the past, and so it's like, very Dark Souls of you guys, but that is okay. Like rip them off forever. I don't care. You're making it damn good. It's as good as I'm gonna get from a company that isn't From Software. So
arguably better than Dark Souls 2, in my opinion.
I agree. Yeah,
arguably. Yeah. So who wants to rip the Band-Aid off and go ahead and say the second game?
I'm happy to, only because wait. A second game that we all share.
Yeah. I'm assuming.
I'm gonna if we don't all have this on our list,
we did a top 100 that's in the process of being finished up, and it's probably on there.
I'm gonna get this out of the way, and I don't need to take all of this one because I can just jump in a little bit. Baldur's Gate 3.
Okay.
Okay,
Everybody's
cool.
shaking their heads. All right,
cool. I'm gonna just lead it with so Baldur's Gate 3 just shows how you can have a company that cares so much about its employees. I think that they managed to, while they were creating it, I believe that they I think the company managed to pull a Ukrainian employee out of Ukraine and like get them safety in, where is Larian based?
Good question. I
forget which country they're in.
I forgot. Let's Google it.
Baldur's Gate.
Belgium.
Belgium.
They're in Belgium. So I think that
Yeah.
they actually managed to pull an employee
Europe.
out of that whole situation. That whole situation.
West Europe.
And Western Europe. And so I think they've managed to pull somebody out of that whole situation. They treat their employees with so much dignity. I believe that, like, in terms of crunch as well, because that's always been a terrible thing, and layoffs, I feel like they've had such a low level of any of that. If they've crunched, I think they said they only crunched slightly compared to all the other companies. So firstly, that on an ethical note, they're a really supportive company. And the amount of time and effort they showed what RPGs can be, what games should be. They're not about microtransactions. They're about storytelling, and it's sold big and won like all the awards for a reason, and that is that it respects its staff and it respects its fans, and I love that. So yeah.
Yeah, I want to add with Baldur's Gate. So I'm a fan of old BioWare isometric RPGs and so on. I remember when people said, "Oh yeah, the isometric RPG is dead." So the fact that Larian came back, it's such with probably the best isometric RPG of all time. The fact that they had the audacity to even risk such a thing in like 20, I think it came out in 2023, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
To me, that shows how much passion they had. They led this whole thing with passion. One other thing that I think like builds up on what Nicole said, they respected the fans in the sense that they were probably one of the most forthcoming companies about what they were doing with the with Baldur's Gate, because they had multiple rounds of testing in different phases. I think there was like alpha phase, beta phase, and stuff like that. So they basically took on what players were saying to them, and the end result is, yeah, it's incredible. I still have to finish it, but man, there's so much in there, and the choice, the options that you have is simply overwhelming. Now, I think another point would be, why don't we see as much sort of impact on that Baldur's Gate 3 may have on the RPG genre? Because we're just making fun of it in the sense that what we have now might be more accessible, simplistic RPGs. Well, I think that has to do with the fact that, to me, Baldur's Gate 3 is basically like a unicorn, right? I don't think it can be easily imitable. You know, you can't just be like, you know what, we're gonna pump out a RPG that can rival Baldur's Gate in just a matter of a few years. Maybe we will have it eventually, but yeah, this is why I believe we don't yet still see sort of like some of that impact.
I will say the closest unicorn we have to Baldur's Gate 3 at the moment is Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. I think that is like as close as we've gotten in a while. And they're considered an indie still. And so like see such a small studio pull that out is phenomenal.
Which, by the way, just to plug in, we have reviewed that and you can see it on our website. Yeah, basically we were very happy with it. You can read it.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I second everything you guys are saying. It's what I think Larian is one of those success stories that I think a lot of smaller studios or studios that are still like trying to find their legs can really learn from in terms of how they began. You know, they have basically just worked on their own lore and world of Divinity for a long time, right? They started way back in the day with just PC Divinity RPGs, and as slowly as they got a little bit more success, grew and grew and grew slowly over time to the point where, like in 2014 and 2017, they had Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2, which did not reach near the levels of Baldur's Gate 3, but showed sort of their, you know, what they could do with their talent, with their games, with how deep their RPGs can go. Divinity Original Sin 2 is still one of the highest reviewed games of all time. But it was very much still like a game that it didn't break through to the mainstream. And then Baldur's Gate 3 was sort of their swan song of like, here's what we've been building up to. This is it. It's a D&D instead of their own universe. So that helped bring in people. And then, you know, I honestly, it's funny. It's a meme, but it was also a brilliant marketing move doing the whole bear sex thing. Like that got so much attention, so much attention.
Genius.
Like that brought so many eyeballs to the game that otherwise wouldn't have had it. And I think the biggest success point of it, and why I think it's worthy of this list, is think about the games that came out that year. It was Tears of the Kingdom.
Yep.
It was Alan Wake 2. It was Baldur's Gate 3, and Baldur's Gate was able to beat out all of those games coming from a studio that most people in the mainstream did not know existed until that game came out. And it still just walloped them all into the dust. Like, we know the cachet that Zelda has, especially as a follow-up to Breath of the Wild, and it still beat them out. So I think that just shows like how much of a moment that was, how much of an impact that's going to have. And I think, Adrian, you're right. We haven't yet seen the impact that Baldur's Gate 3 is going to have. I think it will, but it's too early. People who, like, developers who have maybe played Baldur's Gate 3 when it came out, were working on their games already. So they need to get that product out first. It's only been 2 years. You can't build, like Adrian said, you can't build Baldur's Gate 3 in 2 years. It's not going to happen. There's too much going on under the surface for that to happen. I think we're still going to be waiting to see that in the future. I really
I'm praying
think so.
that Mass Effect and the new Mass Effect game is, since it's in early development, since Dragon Age just came out, that hopefully they're going to take some influence from Baldur's Gate 3 and kind of get back to their roots a little bit more. So fingers crossed.
Absolutely.
We see the outcome.
So,
Jeremy, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, Jeremy, do you have anything to add for that as somebody who also put it on your list?
Yeah, so I haven't played much of it yet, unfortunately. I've not had the time. Baldur's Gate stresses me out, but besides the point, the Baldur's Gate 3 was an interesting case because it was a rare example of a game basically being universally said to be the best game of the year. Because if we look at the Game Awards 2023, we look at like the player's voice, it was almost unanimously Baldur's Gate like the best game. And you don't see that a lot nowadays. People are so divisive in the VGC that it's like, well, no one really can agree what the best game of the year is, but Baldur's Gate 3 was almost unanimously the best game, and that's pretty impressive. Not to mention, just in general, Baldur's Gate brought together like D&D and just TTRPGs in general and video games in a way that not even the other Baldur's Gates could have done. Warhammer, Pathfinder, all of it, just stuff in a way that it just had not been done before. And I think in general, it's honestly kind of a sight to behold compared to a lot of the other games that we've seen this half decade.
It's almost boring, right? It's almost boring to say like Baldur's Gate 3 is like, one of the most influential games of the half decade. It's like it's like, yeah, duh.
Oh yeah.
But it's also like the fact that you can get to that point is like proof enough of how legendary you have now become. Again, it beat out Alan Wake 2 and Tears of the Kingdom.
I was team Alan Wake 2. I hadn't played Baldur's Gate 3 yet. After I was watching the Game Awards and I was like, I was waiting for Baldur's Gate 3 to win everything, and I was like, I was team Baldur's Gate 3, even though I was like team Alan Wake 2. I was like, yeah, go Baldur's Gate, you win it, yeah, woo. So,
I remember it broke the record for the most prizes ever won by a video game. So yeah,
that's incredible. It's incredible. And I'm just gonna say, I'm gonna be that guy. I'm gonna be that guy for a second. That was like, I've been trying to tell y'all, I was a fan before Baldur's Gate 3. I played Divinity 1 and 2, Original Sin 1 and 2, and I was like, look, they're so good, but nobody knows about it. And then it comes out and it's like, oh shit, this is actually like a banger. It's like, yeah, they know what they're doing over there, Larry. They know what they're doing. Yeah, so hopefully, I will say, I'm gonna be a little slight negative Nancy here. And I'm just gonna say, I trust Larian. I do. I trust Larian, but we've seen this kind of thing happen before and then turn out really poorly with CD Projekt Red and how much flowers they got for Witcher 3. And then we saw what happened with Cyberpunk's launch. So even though they've come back since then and had sort of a renaissance, let's pump the brakes a little bit on, giving Larian a sort of clean pass that they're just like, the best thing ever since sliced bread and can do no wrong, because we never know. We'll have to see what happens. I trust that team, because of the way they talk about their development and their team, I trust that they know what they're doing, and will do their next game's justice and stuff. But we have lessons from the past to just,
everyone has a fall from grace. So let's just pray that theirs takes longer, or that they peace out before that happens.
Yeah, so true.
What's that Batman quote? That you'll live long enough to see yourself become a villain.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Classic.
Christopher Nolan, always writing some fire. So, okay. So universally, we got those two games out of the way. I think that's fair to put both of those on the list. Now, I think it gets a little interesting because there's quite a lot of stuff that we can go here. And I am really curious here for Jeremy and what your next game on here will be.
So I listed mine like from 5 to 1, and that was 2 and 1. So now we got to go 3 to 5. So I haven't a pick I'll have to explain a little bit, but my number 5 pick of like the most influential games, because I went kind of different facets of the video game community and just culture in general. My number 5 was actually Hades, which released back in
Ooh.
2020.
You turd! You're stealing all my stuff here. I put down Hades. Why would you do this? You're such an ass. Are you? But I was like, no one's gonna put Hades but me. I've got this. You
Jamie, did you copy
bastard.
Nicole's list?
Ah,
Copy a list.
how
I hacked
dare
your
you?
computer. I hacked your computer last night.
No, you
I saw
hacked
the
my
whole thing.
notepad.
Exactly.
Oh dear, oh dear. Okay, well, I'm piggybacking off Jeremy in a minute. Go ahead, Jeremy. Jesus Christ.
So Hades was kind of an interesting game because it wasn't like as big as like Elden Ring or Baldur's Gate, but it still had a massive impact in 2020. It was like everyone was talking about Hades. I mean, even now with Hades 2 and stuff, the internet's still just raging over Persephone's design and just giving up everyone, but that's not the point. The point is that Hades, it kind of brought back the roguelike because, we had Binding of Isaac and all that, but Hades was like the resurgence, and now, we've got stuff like Balatro and the like that have come around, and now the roguelike's probably one of the more popular genres around nowadays. But yeah, Hades kind of started that. And yeah, it just did a lot of cool stuff. I'm gonna give it to Nicole now before I get strangled. So
I'm gonna like leap through the Zoom call and just destroy you. I don't really have too much to say really, but like I will say that a lot of my choices here are kind of following a similar path. So what Ashton was saying earlier was like, are these actually our favorite games, or are they ones that we're just choosing based on just how important they were in the last few years? So Hades is another example on top of Baldur's Gate of a company that looks after its people. Apparently it had like no crunch and it respected its employees, its team. Everyone was like happy to be there, supposedly. Let's see what happens down the line. But yeah, I'd never played a roguelike before, ever. I played Hades because it was on Game Pass and I had COVID. So I was laying in my bed over Christmas, like, what am I gonna do? Well, I'll just play Hades forever. And and that was amazing. I did beat it in my COVID state. And I thought that the amount of depth there is to the game, the amount of layers that there is, and the amount of escape attempts, it's like I think I've escaped like 5 or 6 times now, and I'm still not done discovering things. It's a game so chock full of stuff. It's always impressing me. There's always something it's got. And I'm gonna be sad the day I finally run out of stuff to do in Hades. But I think that they're a really good company that made something truly special and reinvigorated that kind of game, because I feel like it's just something that I hadn't seen popular recently. Yeah. So yeah.
Was this on your list, Adrian?
No, I actually never played Hades. It's something that always came up, so I definitely have to try it.
Yeah, story's great.
It was just barely made. It didn't make my list, just barely. I ended up putting out like 12 games, and then I just sorted them from the 5, and the others were like backups. And Hades ended up being around like 7. I have played Hades. I escaped twice. And that's kind of the problem. I definitely see the impact. I think while I think the roguelike trend had kind of already began by the time Hades came out, Hades like catapulted it, and now we're seeing even huge franchises like God of War throw in roguelike modes into their games, and I think Hades has to get some credit for that. And really just put Supergiant into this position as like this titan in the industry now, where this little indie studio known for like Bastion and Transistor is now making some of the most best-selling, highly critically acclaimed games ever in Hades. And I definitely get the appeal. I just I think roguelikes and me have a weird mix because I'm very much like I want to get over the mountain. And once I finally get over the mountain, I kind of feel like I'm done. Like that's what ended up happening with me with Hades was I played it. It took me about 6 hours to beat my first run. And then I immediately beat the second run right after that. And I was like, okay, I'm done. And I was like, because my goal wasn't to find all the stuff. My goal was to finish runs. And so that's probably more, that's me. That's a me thing. But I definitely see, because in terms of roguelikes that I've seen and played myself, it definitely has so much depth to it and so much to find. And for those of you who want to, really see everything, talk to everybody, get all that dialogue, get the rest of the story, unlock all those things, do the different challenges. There's so much there that's just, it's hard not to put it on the list, but didn't quite make my list. Instead, I had a different game that beat it out at number 5. And my number 5 game for most influential is one I haven't beaten. It's one that I'm okay with, but I haven't fully fallen in love with it yet. But I think it's influential for a different reason. And that's going to be Cyberpunk. I think Cyberpunk is definitely one of the most influential games of this past half decade for both its initial launch and where it's at now, right? It is like next to No Man's Sky, probably the quintessential story of how you can try to recover a game's reputation. Obviously, we know Witcher 3, huge success. CD Projekt Red hit new heights with Witcher 3. And again, like we just mentioned with Larian, they could do no wrong. Cyberpunk looked like the best thing that was ever going to come out in gaming history. And then it came out and it was a train wreck. And getting delisted from the PlayStation Store, having countless bugs and glitches for people to play through. It was one of the most disastrous launches we've seen in a long time. And then over time, we end up getting updates. We get Phantom Liberty come out not long ago, completely reworked a lot of the systems in that game. And now it's regarded as one of the best games that have come out in the past few years. And I think that story itself is enough. It's definitely a lesson for that a lot of game companies, I think, if they don't take, really need to take going forward, to not launch your stuff early, to not presume that you are going to be able to sort of be forgiven for your sins immediately. Like CD Projekt Red went from one of the most beloved game companies of all time, to immediately dropping down to one of the most hated. And now they're making a comeback. Witcher 4 is in development and people are excited again. I don't think that happens if they don't put in the work to make Cyberpunk work. If Cyberpunk launched and stayed that way, like a lot of games end up doing right now, because they don't have the resources or the time to, work on it and make it better. Because of the fact that they had the time to make Cyberpunk actually work, I think that's what makes Witcher 4 exciting, because you think they've learned their lesson and they're not going to do it again. But had the launch stayed that way, I'm not sure Witcher 4 gets announced. I'm not sure people are really all that excited. And that's a lesson that game companies, especially publishers making decisions on when games will need to be released, need to learn to not rush their games out.
I've got a question actually before we move on to the next one, right? Have any of the games that we've said been published by by American developers? Have they been developed by Americans?
I'm not sure.
I will say
so.
I think there's a stakeholder issue, and there's also like an issue with money. And I feel like for me, one of the biggest issues I see in terms of art getting ruined, it tends to be coming from the higher up leadership and the stakeholders within the
Well,
state.
I mean, Supergiant is in San Francisco, so
the one so far. The one so far. The rest of my list is questionable on that front. So
gotcha.
Just a little comment that I thought I'd just make, because I'm realizing that I'm veering away from American produced games, and I'm starting to go more Japanese and European, because I'm trusting American ones less and less as time goes on. But that's
interesting. It's
Yeah.
interesting. What do you guys think about Cyberpunk? Was that even a thought in any of y'all's lists?
Nope.
No.
I also thought on my list. It was on my list initially, and then I took it off because I didn't finish it.
Okay.
I got mad at it. So I was one of those people that got screwed over in the first few days. And I remember during one of the cutscenes from one of the early stages, you're in the spoilers, but no names, because I forgot their names now because it's been so long.
Keanu Reeves.
No, not Keanu. He was there, like in a little chip. But there was your friend is like in the car with you, and he's got the chip, and he's like, "Hey, here's the chip," and you're gonna take the chip. And then when you're doing that, it like glitched out during this like really heartfelt, sad moment. I spent like 10 hours with this guy already, and for some reason his like pistol was in his hand, so he kept just putting it in his head during the whole scene. He's got his pistol just in his forehead, and I'm like. I know that I don't actually know what you're doing right now. And then he's like, and then I'm like, oh, he's trying to hand me the chip on my screen. I'm just seeing him hand me his gun. And I'm just like, what is, yeah, I was like, what is going on? And then I like take the gun and I'm just like, I was like, what's going on? And yeah, and I think that it had the potential to be magnificent, but I think there's just a lot of problems there. Also, I am the kind of person who this isn't me problem. I am more of a follow the main storyline kind of person. So open worlds scare me. I love a good direct plot. But yeah, I took it off because it made me mad, and I thought influential in terms of be careful what you do, guys.
Yeah.
So
I can say that for me, I was really close to getting it on PS4. I mean, if you're in the UK at the time, you couldn't get away from the hype. It was, Cyberpunk was basically plastered on all buses and stuff like that. I was really close to it, and then I was like, wait a second, I saw a lot of buggy videos and crashes and so on, to the point that really put me off. I still haven't considered it since. Maybe one day I will, but yeah, that initial sort of launch that was so rushed, really, I feel like, as you guys saying, I feel like that's a good lesson, because honestly, for me, that even now I feel like a bit like, you know what, I don't know if I fully trust you yet with this.
Yeah. And I bought the expensive pre-order just because I wanted to. So that was bad. Did it come out on like the election day as well? Was it that deep into COVID, or was it late?
I don't remember exactly, actually, no.
Yeah, I just remember it coming out still in like the height of COVID, where everything was bad. So we all needed this nice reprieve, and the election was happening and everything, and then even then, like it wasn't good enough to dull the pain of everything that was happening.
But it did not come out on election day. It came out like a month later.
Good. Okay, so we had Biden in at the time.
Yeah.
Yay!
No, technically no.
Oh, no,
you're right. Yeah, you're right.
It needs another month and a half for it to go over. But yeah, I think Cyberpunk deserves to be on this list. But Adrian, I'm curious what your next game was.
Well, Ashton, I think you're gonna love this one, because you actually did recommend it to me. So the next one, I will cheat a bit, in a sense that I will bundle two of them up right now, and one of them hasn't come out technically in the 2020s. But Final Fantasy VII Remake Rebirth, I was
waiting for this.
And I'll tell you why.
So they both do count, by the way.
Yeah, okay. They count.
Because Remake was 2020.
Remake was 2020? Oh, great. Yeah. Good.
That was obviously on my list too, by the way.
It was on the list too.
Yes.
The way I see it, okay, I see it as, and I said this before, I see it kind of like a Lord of the Rings type situation, where we need the final part, and then we will be, in the situation to judge it as a whole. But so far, so very good, I would say, because what I like about it is, and why I think it may be impactful, we don't see the impact yet, but it's one of the, if not the best way of doing a remake of a well-beloved game. And what I say by that is they respect the source material. They also deviate from it. They add to it. They enhance it, I believe, in my case. So it's not a one-to-one copy. And maybe this is what I was saying to you guys when I was last on this podcast with Metal Gear Solid Delta. Because to me, whatever they showed, it feels like it's a one-to-one copy, not copy. But I want them to do more with that. If you're gonna do a remake, please add to it. Make it more. And this is what Final Fantasy Rebirth Remake are doing to me. It makes me really enjoy that world. And I feel like that's the impact that I see with it.
Was it on anybody else's list besides me and Adrian?
Oh.
Yeah, Jeremy hates it.
Jeremy doesn't like
so I'm gonna piggyback off and completely agree with Adrian. And Final Fantasy VII as a sort of story, as an IP, is like its own thing, from different from the rest of the Final Fantasies. Like, Seven has a presence in sort of our culture and has grown to such a sizable degree that it's basically its own franchise by itself. You don't even need to connect it with the rest of the Final Fantasies at all. It's kind of a juggernaut all on its own. And that allows Seven to have so much different sort of stories, games, spin-offs, books, movies that have come out surrounding it, that they are now playing with and toying with this remake trilogy that is basically as much of it's less of a remake and more of like a swan song for the franchise. It's more like it's bringing in all of these, disparate sort of side stuff from throughout the Final Fantasy VII compendium and bringing them all into remake and bringing it all together to be one massive, huge story that is less so of a remake and more so as a sequel, which is just incredible. Like, if you're somebody who's hardcore into Final Fantasy VII like me, you're seeing so much stuff and connecting so many dots that are really blowing your mind. You look like that meme of the guy with the board with the strings connecting everything, and he's freaking out. Like, that's me at all times with this game.
It's Always Sunny meme.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
That's me at all times when I talk about this game. But then for new people like Adrian, it's still just a solid story. It's a great story with great characters, great gameplay, a beautiful world, great music. Like, it's still enjoyable for those people too, and they get to experience it in a completely different way than like I'm experiencing, but we both can enjoy it in a lot of ways.
It actually made me want to learn more about Final Fantasy as a series because of these.
Yeah, and it's I think that's the best part about it, is because if it was just a straight up remake, nothing else was really different. Even if it was a remake that just added some stuff like making Midgar bigger, but nothing else was really different, I don't know if I'd like it as much. But because it's such a different beast from every other remake in existence, and it's because it's such a unique way to revive a world like that, I think it makes it truly special for new players and old veterans like me alike. And I really enjoy it. So that was on my list. So whoever wants to go next between Nicole and Jeremy, I'm very curious, since y'all have I'm sure y'all going to have some differences here on what's going to be in your lists.
And by the way, just a little side note, as we are going through them, I'm basically adding them on a list. And then at the end, we can be like, okay, this is what we said. This is what our lists are.
I guess I'll go first on this one. So I want to.
Yeah, you better before Jeremy steals another one.
I want to thank Jeremy again for stealing Hades from me. That's all right. Yep. So I'm gonna save one till last. So It Takes Two is my next one.
Oh, okay.
Oh, my list. I'm joking.
I was about to like come for you, seriously. So It Takes Two is one of those games where it came out again during the kind of COVID era. We were kind of coming out of it, but it was still kind of a thing. People were just getting like their vaccines and stuff. People were still masking because, and it was a game that I think I very much needed, because coming out of COVID, a lot of people still weren't entirely safe to go places. A lot of people came out with long-standing health issues. So I was able to connect with my friends and, collaborate on a very chaotic and fun cooperative game. It Takes Two is also just it's got so much heart to it. And again, my Lord and Savior Joseph Fares is my hero. I love him. He's right up there with Sam Lake. I love him so much. And he said something really great when he was making Jeff Keighley cry, which is the EA like always about those microtransactions, but they've always treated him and his people really well. And It Takes Two is one of those games that like delivers you the entire game in one go. On top of that, they also have the Friends Pass. So the new game Split Fiction's coming out Thursday. I'm so excited. And I have pre-ordered it. I'm going to be playing it with my friend. My friend is a bit more broke than me, so he is going to be getting the Friends Pass to play with me. And I think the Friends Pass is such a fantastic way to get around two people having to buy a game to play it cooperatively, because it's a game that you can't play without someone else. It's not very fair that if you don't have somebody to come over and sit on your sofa with you, to not have that option. So doing that, especially during COVID, was such a lovely and very empathetic kind of idea to have. I think that I was so used to EA doing me dirty that when they gave me Jedi Fallen Order with no DLC or microtransactions, I was like, "What's happening?" And they gave me It Takes Two, and I was like, "EA, you're being really good. I love you." So yeah, I think It Takes Two is really important. I think it did a lot, and has definitely brought back the love for co-op. I think it shows the kind of chaotic fun that co-op games can have. Not that they didn't exist at the time, but I think It Takes Two also winning Game of the Year really helped kind of drive the whole idea that cooperative games are also just so damn good. So yeah.
Is this on anybody else's list?
It wasn't on my list, but I agree with Nicole here. I was actually thinking about it because I played it with my partner and she's not so much big into video games, but this is such a great experience together. And I think what Nicole was saying, I do agree with that. I mean, co-op games, we had them before, but the co-op was also kind of like mostly thought of as a additional thing to the main game or as a side thing, right? And this is basically probably the game because it became the most popular co-op game to actually push that as its main draw and it build the game around that. So yeah, I really love the inventiveness that we have in that It Takes Two world. You go through a few worlds together and you have to like collaborate. I mean, the other one that I can think of, it's not from this decade, but Portal is the other one that I can think of in terms of co-op that was great. And even in that sense, you could still play Portal as a single player game, right? But
Yeah,
this
there were two
one,
different campaigns.
yeah.
The
there was a
co-op was
co-op
kind of
and a
like
single.
the other one, yeah.
Yeah, so this is why I think, yeah, I agree with Nicole on this. I like that.
Yeah, thank you.
Bringing couch co-op back. I mean, that's such a long lost art at this point. I feel like couch co-op was part of probably so many of our lives growing up with these games, and we've seen games that historically are, I think, etched into at least my mind, associated with couch co-op, like Halo, just completely disregard it when it launches too. So we saw how co-op is kind of taking a back burner, but I really hope that It Takes Two, and Joseph Ferris's games just in general and his like rise to great heights that he's having, really brings that kind of co-op back and shows developers and publishers that people want it. People want to play games with their friends. Wow, shocker.
Yeah, can you believe it?
I can't.
Jeremy, what you got for me?
I would like to point out that even my microphone was appalled by Adrian's suggestion of Final Fantasy, but but I gotta go Nintendo mode here.
Like, every time the glasses come on, I'm obsessed with this.
Dr. Nintendo.
All right, so everyone, let me tell you about Nintendo. It's great. I'm going to tell you about the most influential Nintendo game ever, and that is, of course, Snipper. No, we've got my number 4. I swapped these around a little bit, but my number 4 game, most influential game, is more or less directed towards Nintendo, and it's Tears of the Kingdom.
Okay.
Because Tears of the Kingdom, less influential, of course, than a lot of the other games we've mentioned today, but for Nintendo, it's kind of setting their trajectory going into the Switch 2. $70 game. It really showed the power of the Switch. Big open world and all that. Just cramming so much into such a small Switch game. But yeah, it was definitely a step up from everything else. It's kind of the standard, I guess, for Nintendo games. Like, is it as good as Tears of the Kingdom sort of thing? And I think it's kind of their magnum opus of the past 5 years, because I mean, even last year they've had underwhelming releases, like left, right, and center. And I feel like Tears of the Kingdom is kind of like their golden goose of more recent years, and I think it's really gonna set the standard for what they do going forward.
So is that on your list as a favorite or impactful?
Impactful.
Impactful. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna challenge you slightly, just slightly.
Yeah.
Would you consider that it is a less impactful game than Breath of the Wild?
Oh, it absolutely is. Breath of the Wild was Breath of the Wild, and you wouldn't have Tears of the Kingdom without Breath of the Wild. However, of the past 5 years, of course, Breath of the Wild was 2018, or it was 2017.
Right.
But of the past 5 years, in comparison to everything else, Tears of the Kingdom is Nintendo's, I would say, their most impactful game of the past 5 years. Of course, you look beyond that, 2017's got Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild, so obviously those are gonna take precedent. They're a lot more important to not just the Switch, but Nintendo as a whole. But I think Tears of the Kingdom kind of follows up on that and still has a standard that's set that I think is we're gonna be seeing a lot more of $70 games and these bigger titles on the Switch too. So I think honestly it's kind of really, I guess, a test for the Switch too a little bit, like kind of dipping their toes into making a game like that. So I think we'll see its effects as time goes on and whether they'll be more impactful or less than I think they will be.
Gotcha. Yeah, Tears of the Kingdom almost made my list, but the Breath of the Wild thing really cut into it for me. Where I just think Breath of the Wild was the impactful one, and Tears of the Kingdom, while better, I think the better game. I don't think it's going. It's already, we've already seen the splash that Breath of the Wild did, so it didn't make my list, but I get the sentiment for sure, and it definitely deserves to, get its flowers.
I'm getting like PTSD to that like Discord call we had when we were arguing over like the best games of all time, and we were arguing between Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, and it was Jeremy, you're fighting so hard. It was so good.
Did I fight for one or the other? Because I don't remember being in that fight. I was in a lot of other fights, but I didn't care.
The Tears of the Kingdom fight, you were in that one.
Was I? Because I don't care which one.
Comment section. Which one is better, Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom? Let us know. Let us know. If you don't say Tears of the Kingdom, you're wrong.
And you say Breath of the Wild, good for you.
Good for you. To each own, I guess.
No, I was in the Ocarina versus Breath of the Wild.
Oh, you definitely were in that one. Oh my god, you were. Oh, that was
one.
Yeah.
For our viewers who may not know yet, we have been working on something cool. Basically a list of, I think, top 100 best games ever made, or at very least games that are recommended that you play. So we are working on that. It's gonna come together. So yeah, please stay tuned.
Stay tuned to smashjump.com. Very easy to find. Adrian, based on our list here, I think everybody else only has one game left. So if you would kindly go ahead, and I think you have two more left, right? So go ahead and give me your number 4.
Well, man, this is so difficult. I will tell you one that's more personal, although I don't feel like it, I don't see it having much an impact. So I'm just gonna kind of say it. I really enjoyed Stray. I enjoyed Stray because it is an indie game that surprised me with its amazing environmental storytelling. And like kind of we were saying that a lot of games nowadays either kind of like handhold you, or they're very clear about the story and so on. But I feel like, to me, Stray, it was so effectively built around exploration and finding out what this, like, slowly peeling sort of the layers of what this strange world was about. I really loved it. I don't think it will have much of an impact. I mean, I don't see many people talking about it yet. It was a Game of the Year nominee, so I wish it would get more attention. I don't know what the developers are working on right now. I hope it's a Stray sequel. I don't know how they pulled that off. But yeah, a Stray to me is more of a more favorite game rather than impactful game. But to jump into the more impactful one, and I would say this is more like very recent, but I have to stand by it because I gave it a 10 out of 10. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. It's too soon.
That coming. Yep.
It's too soon to say that, but I think it will be impactful in the sense that maybe IP-based video games might get more credit than they have. And we all know Marvel Spider-Man 1. Not, I mean, 2, or yes, we can talk about that. I don't think it will be as influential as 1. But coming back to Indiana Jones, I really loved what they did with the source material, enhancing the source material, especially when, I mean, if you saw the recent 2 movies, the most recent 2 Indiana Jones movies, yeah, they weren't that great, right? So I think this, I saw a lot of people being worried that, oh, this Indiana Jones franchise might actually, like, kind of be forgotten, or at least not as popular. And then you get Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, which basically gets all the best elements from the first three movies and comes up with, in my opinion, a very compelling story and villain. And it's Indiana Jones. It's great. It's exactly what I want. Punching Nazis. Who doesn't want that, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I see Indiana Jones and the Great Circle as a reminder that, yeah, if you respect the source material, if you build upon that, you can really like go far. And I hope that more developers, I mean, I'm saying this now, but we just had the bad news with Monolith and Wonder Woman being, shut down basically. But I hope more developers in the future might be more wary to, and not wary, but more open to maybe pick up either forgotten franchises or maybe franchises that are struggling from other IP and just put their own spin on it and try something new. So that's why Indiana Jones is and the Great Circle is one of my top 5.
Perfect.
Um,
Perfect.
Yeah. Am I going next on this one? Just because I'm ready to go.
If you want to, we did just get done giving finally Xbox some praise, so we'll see if you can follow it up with some more, or
Phil,
just
don't forget about this. Phil, don't forget about this. You're watching this,
Yeah.
okay?
So I've got like a teeny tiny one and then the most predictable one. So very teeny tiny. We've got Balatro. I think that is a banger of a game. Jeremy, was it on your list?
No.
You smiled at me funny, so I was like, you get back.
I'm just shocked it's there, to be honest.
I think Balatro is fantastic. One guy made it. It was nominated
Yeah,
for Game of
that's
the Year.
impressive.
It's bringing back poker in a non-gambling way. It made it fun. It made it interesting. Though I've never seen a game do what it did, and I really went through a really strong deck building kind of game phase with Inscription and Balatro and Wingspan recently. I think Balatro was a weird fluke that has somehow done incredibly well, and it sold so well. I think, did it hit like 1 million or something, or 5 million or something the other day? It hit crazy numbers of sales, and I just think it's so impressive that a game like that can be at the Game Awards and be nominated for Game of the Year. I think it's fantastic, and I think that it can make, poker's always seen as a gambling game, but it's just a card game that it doesn't have to be a gambling game. It can be fun. And on top of that, the most predictable answer that Nicole could ever come up with is obviously Alan Wake 2. Duh. It's me, obviously. So I think that Alan Wake 2 and Remedy as a whole are a fantastic company. They had very minimal crunch, apparently. A lot of these following the same pattern of no crunch or little crunch. They didn't have much crunch. They, respect their employees. They are a Finnish studio. I love them. They've been around forever. They're good people. They finished the game on time, and then they delayed it by a couple of weeks because its release window was it around the same time as Baldur's Gate or something? Was that what was releasing?
It was close.
Yeah. And so they were like, oh, we're gonna wait a couple of weeks because don't want to get hit with that and like lose sales. In order to keep the game cheaper, they didn't have a physical release initially. They did a digital release in order to keep the price lower for consumers. A lot of people got mad about that, but then once they hit good sales, they were like, right, now we're going to do a physical release. So they're very, they're trying to think about ways to save themselves and the consumers money. They really think about everybody. I just think that they're a fantastic studio that thinks about their audience, above all. And on top of that, the meta narrative that their games have got is fantastic. If it wasn't for the whole We Sing segment and it appearing at the Game Awards, it hit extra numbers there. It was a fantastic moment. I don't think anybody can ever forget it. It was so incredible and funny, and I just think that Sam Lake is hilarious and a genius all in one. I just think that it's such a great game that follows its own weird and wonderful narrative. And yeah, I just think that they're a company that everyone should support because not only they make good games, but they're good people and they care about their employees. So
I would say, Nicole, I actually had Alan Wake 2 on my list, but I knew it would probably make your list. So I was like, this is Nicole's, okay?
just ignore it. Yeah, take it off. Do you have anything to say about it though?
Yeah, I like mind-bending movies, right? And to
too.
me, this reminds me of, okay, what if you make David Lynch, make a movie, and
Rip.
rest in peace, David Lynch. But yeah, to me, Remedy was always like had this amazing like knack for mind-bending stuff, even from Max Payne 1, 2. I really love those, for example. So I
Yeah.
haven't finished, I would say I haven't finished Alan Wake 2, but it really hooked me. So yeah, I see.
Yeah. I'm so happy. There we go.
Perfect.
Predictable end for Nicole.
Hey, I mean, you wouldn't be here if you weren't yourself, you know?
Yeah.
You gotta always be yourself. I mean, honestly, I don't think I would disagree with Alan Wake 2. I think it really Alan Wake was the first game was very
Weird.
like cult classic kind of thing,
Yes,
right? Like it
it's
has
very
its
niche.
following, but it's very niche. And then Alan Wake 2 kind of came out, and I felt like everybody was playing it, and everybody was like finally seeing what Remedy can do. And like Control, I think, was the one that really brought them out to the limelight, and people, adored that. I played Control. I'd never played a Remedy game before, and I played Control and I loved it. And that really got me into them, and I will be playing Alan Wake eventually. Just bring it to Steam, please. But I'd like all my things be in one place. But yeah, I think that's fair, and I think the even just graphically, storytelling wise, yeah, I think that could have some impact going forward. Jeremy, why don't you go ahead and finish off your list here?
So this one is a little bit different from the others because this one didn't really have a big impact on gaming itself, any company or anything, but it had a big cultural impact, and it got mentioned actually earlier in our little discussion here. And I would like to preface this by saying I'm more of a fan of New Leaf, if it's not obvious, but the game that I have as my last one, my number 3, is New Horizons, Animal Crossing New Horizons. Because before Among Us and before Fall Guys and before all of it, it was the COVID game. It was the thing that everybody played because it was the right game at the right time, and it kind of took over. Content creators played it, casual gamers played it, everyone was playing it because everyone was sad and alone in their houses, myself included, unfortunately. And we were all wanting social interaction, and Animal Crossing kind of gave that. It became kind of a phenomenon to the point where it's the best-selling game in the series by a wide margin. It sold, I think, about 30 million
It's 50.
copies.
Close to 50 now. It's crazy. It was 30 million by the end of the pandemic. And I
Wow.
actually, I'll say
Damn.
why. I'll say why, because it made my list, and I'm very happy Jeremy mentioned it because it would have gone unmentioned if it wasn't for Jeremy. So thank you.
But it's interesting just how well it did because it was really a product of its time. And like for all the games that we've talked about today, it like was something more significant for the past 5 years. It is a representation of just how bad COVID was. I mean, for comparison, you know how much New Leaf sold? It sold like 11 million copies by the time it was done compared to New Horizons. It's insane what it's a good example of, like, when you release something is critical to its success. It's probably one of the best examples of that, period.
Yeah, they unintentionally planned it. I will say that
Yeah.
I was a New Horizons person as well during COVID. I would go and terrorize all my friends' islands by taking crap to their island and burying it everywhere just to give them something to do because I'm a monster. And that I really enjoyed doing that. Or like going to an island, removing everything just to get as many spiders as possible so I could, get the big bucks. Or like in, pop culture, Elijah Wood contacting a random Raylo girl being like, hey, can I come to your island? And then the Raylo girl was like, do you love Ryan Johnson? Do you love The Last Jedi? And then when he leaves, he goes, praise Ryan Johnson or something, or long live Ryan Johnson. And as a Raylo, I was absolutely losing it. I couldn't even. So I just think that yeah, I absolutely love New Horizons, and I'm glad that you brought it up because it is so important and crucial to that.
Yeah.
Just to add to Jeremy, so New Horizons, this was my first Animal Crossing, and I got the Switch for this one in the pandemic. I never had a Switch before. And I played this so hard, so much. I'm not kidding. I think next to Counter-Strike, like the old one, Animal Crossing New Horizons combined hours, I think I have probably over 3,000 hours, me and my partner in it. I'm not kidding. It's crazy. I hope you don't think wrong of me right now. But
No, you're good.
yeah, I have.
You got more hours than I do in New Leaf. I've owned it for 10 years.
Yeah, it's probably around there, 3,000 for sure, over 2,000 hours.
Man.
I don't agree with you on some aspect. For example, I do agree that the pandemic really pushed its success,
Yeah.
but it had an incredible tail end. So I looked at the numbers, and if you look at the numbers, basically by the end of the pandemic, like Jeremy was saying, we had around 30 million or so. Now, since the pandemic, this game was still bringing in lots of people in. I think, like we're saying, the most recent estimate is over 40 million or so, close to 50 million copies sold. So you can see that, that sort of success or popularity really continued even after that pandemic. So I agree with the pandemic effect, but to what extent, maybe that's where I disagree. Um, I also think one important thing that Animal Crossing New Horizons did is it brought back cozy life sims into the mainstream. We had Stardew Valley, but that was before 2020. But this one's such a big juggernaut thingy, and I feel like to some extent Stardew Valley actually benefited from the success of Animal
Yeah.
Crossing. And we have so many copies of Animal Crossing right now. I think most recently we had the Hello Kitty Island Adventures. I think that came out just last month or 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Right? And that's basically, Animal Crossing. We have Dreamlight Valley from Disney, right? That's basically trying to be like
Yeah.
Animal Crossing New
We
Horizons.
got web fishing, the greatest game ever made.
Yeah, so I see the impact there. And I think more importantly, going forward, I'm pretty sure Nintendo is already deep in development with the new Animal Crossing right
Oh,
now. Not that I
absolutely.
know anything about that, but most likely. But what a New Horizons maybe did and going forward is they noticed that people love customization and building up their island and so on. And I think that's a bit to some extent controversial in the Animal Crossing community for people like Jeremy, maybe that like New Leaf more, right? Right. So you like New Leaf more, right? So I think we'll still see that customization aspect being
Yeah.
important into the next one. So yeah.
All right. All right. For my last one, I got one more to bring out here to, I believe, close it out, right? Everybody else's list is wrapped up. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So my last one is a controversial one,
Uh-oh.
but I think it deserves it. I had a tough time figuring out what my last one was going to be, but I have put The Last of Us 2 as
Yes!
in my list.
I was going to do it, and I was like, Ashton's going to do it for me.
I got to do it. I got to do it. It is one of the most controversial games that has come out in the last 5 years. Also a COVID game, same year as Final Fantasy VII Remake. So when I was thinking of my game of the year that year, you can imagine the struggle I was having with myself. But The Last of Us 2, I mean, what can be said about it that hasn't been said about it? I'll focus on the impact part because people have made up their minds on Last of Us 2 at this point. There's not really any chance to budge people about it, right? Obviously, I love it, and I think it is the best story in a game I've ever played. And I think that is really going to be the thing that it's most remembered for. I think that it swung for the fences so hard, and it took such great risks with how it set up its storytelling and the story that it wanted to tell. And whether or not you ended up on one side of it or the other, I think it's very clear that what Naughty Dog did with Last of Us was something that a lot of developers and publishers would be very scared to do. Spoilers for Last of Us 2, obviously, for people who have not played it for whatever reason or even plan to play it, like Adrian. I'll say it this way: killing off some of the characters that they did, and especially in the way that they did it, was very ballsy. And then later in the game, taking control of the character who did it and having to wrecking yourself with that character, having to build and rapport with that character, an opinion about that character, and have your own feelings be challenged by the game itself. Have this game that I feel like Last of Us 1, while a very emotional, very gripping, very compelling story, was very easy to play in terms of here's some bad guys, here's some zombies. You kill them in a room and you move on to the next story beat, and your emotion comes from just the characters and the story itself. But Last of Us 2 takes it to another level where the stuff you're doing doesn't make you feel good. It doesn't feel good to play emotionally, right? And I think that's such an important thing because that's what they were going for. They didn't want this to be a shooty, heroic, people die in a blaze of glory, people, you know, like the enemies you're killing are nobody, just NPCs that you're killing. They built it so that the people you're fighting are supposed to be real people. And the person who ripped your heart out at the very beginning is still a human being that has their own stuff going on that you then have to basically diverge, where you're either a player who developed an appreciation for that character and developed an understanding of how that character works and shifted your mindset of them, or rejected that character and continued the sort of cycle of hate and anger that the game is sort of presenting to you. It kind of puts you in two lanes and you kind of follow one of those two lanes. And I think that's such a huge thing to do for a franchise that is so massive. Like Last of Us is a juggernaut at this point. I just think it's really ballsy.
Well,
and it's only great. 2 games. And, obviously they had the multiplayer thing that kind of fell through. But I just think story-wise and the guts it took to do that, and in my opinion, succeed with full marks on it, winning Game of the year it came out. I think that I hope that some of the backlash that happened with it, personally, I hope that doesn't make, Neil shy away from telling his story. I don't think it will. Neil is a pretty hard and fast guy for what he wants to do. I feel like Neil has the cachet that whatever he wants to do with Intergalactic, he's going to do. But yeah, I think Last of Us 2 for what it did, how dramatic it was, how divisive it was, how, I think we're going to see the impact of that decision really ripple still throughout gaming history, with big franchises deciding one way or the other if they want to, play it safe and cater to that audience that really didn't like how Last of Us 2 handled its story, or if they're going to take that risk and cater to the audience that, like me, really loved what Last of Us 2 did. I think it's going to be one of those games we talk about for many years to come, past decades.
You couldn't have said it any better, to be honest. It's just I agree with you wholeheartedly. The way that you feel about The Last of Us 2, I feel about it as well. It's I kind of had it initially with Star Wars The Last Jedi. I didn't like Force Awakens very much because it was just a carbon copy of the original Star Wars films. When Rian Johnson started to do something different, I was like, oh my god, finally. There's some nuance, there's some gray to this. Everything's not so black and white, we don't have just the Empire versus the rebels. They're bad guys on both sides. And so what I really loved about The Last of Us is it kind of came out around a time where I was feeling really alone, very isolated in the idea of people. I kept having to argue for stories to change, and I kept having to I kept getting to argue with all my friends, being like, no, but they're ruining my favorite characters, and I'm like, who cares? They're not ruining them. They're evolving. They're humans. They are different. Things are difficult. Being a human is hard, and so having The Last of Us Part 2 be so raw and so human is so fantastic. I think my issue with The Last of Us 1, a fantastic game, got no actual issues with it. But the thing with Last of Us 1 is that it's following that cliche kind of idea of the adoptive father, adoptive daughter kind of thing. I had just come off BioShock Infinite, and I'd just come off the Walking Dead Telltale games. So I was like, right, I've done this plenty of times. I come chill. And so with The Last of Us 2, Part 2, it just completely threw me for a loop and shocked me. But it didn't feel like it was doing it for shock value. It was an evolution of the characters, and that's why I think it's so extraordinary. So yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, and I want to piggyback on that, because I'm actually, funnily enough, I'm somebody who really does not like The Last Jedi very much at all. But I think the difference for me between those two was that I felt like, and this won't be a Last Jedi conversation. That's a whole podcast by itself. But I feel like Last Jedi, to me, I know people feel different. To me, did a lot of subversion and shock value just for the sake of subversion and shock value to me. Whereas Last of Us 2 did it in a way that I thought always made sense for the world and always was purposeful for the story. And that's why I appreciate it so much. I understand why people like Last Jedi, so don't get me wrong. But it just didn't work for me in that way. But I see that vision in Last of Us 2, and I appreciate it there.
I think the bottom line is that when it comes to the thing, the Last of Us 2 got so much hate, and a lot of the people behind the scenes got a lot of hate, and I like that we're just not on the sides of hate. We're on the sides of, hey, people make good games. It is a beautiful game, and I'm glad we're on the same team there. So yay.
It's true. I think the fact that it got so much hate and love is, and it's like you say the word Last of Us 2, just the title, and it's like, okay, like there's going to be a conversation here because people have such strong opinions and they're going to hold those for years to come.
Yeah.
So any other thoughts following up on that Last of Us 2 take? All right. Wonderful.
Three words.
No, don't you say it. Don't you say it.
3 words.
Last of Us.
All I have to say. No. 3 words. Cognitive narrative dissonance. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, you're a Last of Us 1 guy, aren't you? You're just like...
Oh, I don't care about Last of Us 1 either. I just hate The Last of Us 2.
There we go.
I don't like it.
This was an argument we had a lot. So
he's the pure hater.
Look, I haven't played them. I haven't played them yet. But I mean, it's hard I feel like to overlook them because they've always been there. Like I've always heard them, like, whispers like Last of Us, you have to play it. And I'm not like a big zombie movie fan, stuff like I gave up mid through the Walking Dead, but I really love story and storytelling. So I think this is gonna be on my list. Yeah,
and I mean, Last of Us is so much less about the zombies and so much more about the characters and the humans. So I think that's really, I mean, it's kind of cliche because every zombie movie with any worthwhile story is always like, the monster is the humans. Whoa. It's like, whoa. But I mean, they do it well there. Before we wrap up here and get on to our after show, I want to go ahead and just throw out a few names that almost made my list and get y'all's kind of thoughts on it. Lies of P. I'm kind of almost surprised that it didn't
almost
make
on my
Nicole's
list. Yeah, it was really close. It was close. Elden Ring beat it out, and I was like, sorry, Lies of P, you weren't influential enough. So yeah.
Lies of P. Helldivers.
Yes.
I think is worth thinking about.
For the good and for the bad, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, we had the controversy with the whole PlayStation Network thing going on. But then the game itself, the way it does like the social media, like keeping the game live service game through social media and like those drops and all that stuff, really, really pretty cool. And I wonder if we're going to see more of that going forward. It's just such a fresh game that I couldn't put on my list. And then I also put Concord as like a honorary mention for another one that's like maybe influential for how it fails rather than succeeds.
I thought about putting Concord on the list, but I was like, it's a failure. It can't be influential.
But sometimes failure is a lesson that we take into the future, you know?
Yeah, because if we're looking at it like with Concord real quick, Concord's an interesting case because it genuinely might be the biggest flop of all time. It's kind of insane.
It's embarrassing.
It is so embarrassing. It's funny how history was like made right before all of our eyes. It's like, man, are they gonna bury it in the desert? What's going on here?
Yeah, like E.T.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I think the blast from the past right there. I think that I put Cyberpunk in there instead because I think it was just such a bigger game. I think a lot of people saw Concord coming in terms of. I don't think anybody really saw it failing so spectacularly. But I think most of us probably saw Concord coming and assumed it wasn't going to work out. But I definitely think it could be considered impactful just how dramatically it didn't work out. But those were all my honorable mentions. That's it. So let's do I'm going to do a quick recap of everybody's list here. So I had on my top 5 most influential games of all time, I had Final Fantasy VII Remake, Last of Us 2, Baldur's Gate 3, Elden Ring, and Cyberpunk. Nicole, what was your top 5 as a recap?
Baldur's Gate 3, Elden Ring, It Takes Two, Alan Wake 2, Hades, and a wee bit of Balatro. And I will say, I had one honorable mention, so I wore the shirt, was Psychonauts 2. There's my shirt.
Oh,
there it is. I thought it was a great game, thought it was so good, but you know, it just wasn't influential enough, and I wish it was. But it was one of my favorites for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I would say so Baldur's Gate 3, Elden Ring, Final Fantasy Remake, well, slash Rebirth, Stray, and Indiana Jones and the Great Circle.
perfect.
My list in order is 80s, Tears of the Kingdom, Animal Crossing New Horizons, Elden Ring, and Baldur's Gate 3.
Perfect. So we got some overlap, but we also have quite a lot of differences, and I love that. Love that we can get all those different games and those different ideas and having those conversations. Always very fun. Guys, let us know what you think down in the comment section below. Let us know what you think are the top 5 most influential games of the past half decade, and go ahead and let us know what your favorite games of the past half decade, because those could be 2 different lists depending on how you view it. Make sure to subscribe to the Smash Jump YouTube channel and check out smashjump.com for all of that good gaming news, reviews, goodness, and keep an eye out for our top 100. It's coming on the way real soon. I'm sure we'll have a big to-do about it once it's ready to go. And make sure you go ahead and check out our Patreon, which will give you early access to these episodes a day early and a exclusive post show that happens that we record right after the show, where we talk about all sorts of crazy shit that you just won't want to miss. Make sure to go ahead and subscribe there. Any plugs that you guys want to do before we sign off?
Yeah, go to our Patreon to watch Sam eat his whole dinner. And if you care about Stargate, which is such a random thing that died in 2011 to a degree, but I'm always begging for it to come back, then check out my YouTube channel, Wormhole Extremists. We watch Stargate. And we had Ben the other week, who was actually a fan of Stargate, so he came straight over to my podcast and was there for the whole 2 hours, learned so many fun facts. I do almost no work, except I contribute to it by talking, while my colleagues are always spitting fun facts out that I didn't know behind the scenes and all sorts of fun. And occasionally we have guest appearances from the actors. So yeah, just check it out if you feel like it. No pressure.
All right, anybody else? Any last call for plugs? Let's call for plugs.
I'm going to plug my cat really quick.
I'm going to need a name.
Yeah.
To anyone who hates SAO, I'm so sorry, but I'm a big Asuna fan, so she is Asuna. Hi, Mrs. Kitty. She wants to leave, so I'm going to let her
She wants to go.
Gotta let her go.
Now understand the SAO sort of simping by Jeremy.
You know what's funny, though, is I hate SAO.
You keep saying that.
Yeah.
Keep saying that.
I'm going to plug my YouTube channel now. I made a 30-minute video hating on SAO and then made a 50-minute post commentary hating on it again. So.
Wow.
Jeremy has the most insane hate energy I've ever.
He has so much hate energy. I can't even. It's amazing. Good for you.
That's what the classes are for.
Yeah.
He balances us. He's the man. He balances us. Yeah, unlike you guys, I don't really use social media that much, but I would say, you know, stay tuned to smashjump.com. You'll find us on our socials as well, on YouTube and so on. And we really appreciate if you could join us on Patreon as well. Like Ashton was saying, we have an after show after. So thank you for tuning in.
Absolutely. You can also follow me as your host on Ashton Lavelle YT on YouTube, where I make little videos where I just, you know, talk about games, write about them, and make little video essays.
Ashton's Mass Effect Andromeda video was incredible. Everyone should go check it out. It was so good.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed it. I watched the whole thing while like eating, and it was honestly fantastic. I
work hard on them, but they take a while. So, and I procrastinate too much. So they come out slow, but I work on them as best as I can. That has been the Smash Jump podcast. For those of you on Patreon, we'll see you on the after show. For everybody else, we'll see you on the next one. Peace.